Do you like sand? Well, I'll tell you who doesn't. This guy. Here we go with number 2. Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, is the sequel to Episode 1 and the second film chronologically in the Star Wars Saga. This time around, we follow Obi-Wan Kenobi and an adult Anakin Skywalker as they investigate the possible reemergence of the Sith and some strange going-ons within the Republic. Episode 2 gets a lot of hate, but is it deserved? Yeah, some of it is, but not all of it. The story this time around is a lot more interesting than Episode 1, though it is still overly convoluted and not up to the bar that we've come to expect from Star Wars. Overall, though, the story's not that bad. It does try to get back to those simpler roots of the originals. It strays a bit, that's for sure, but it is better than the last effort. One of the biggest improvements here is the pace. The pace of Episode 2 is much better than Episode 1. Now, there's still boring parts in this movie like there were in Episode 1, but it peppers the more exciting parts in a lot better this time around. Instead of these long stretches of just being bored out of your mind until the cool stuff happens, they're much shorter segments, and he intertwines the cool stuff that we're actually interested in to a much better degree this time. One of the things that gets the most hate from this movie is the Anakin Padme love story. Now, I get that it had to be there. These two had to develop a relationship so that they could get together and inevitably create Luke and Leia so that the story could continue. My problem's not so much that the relationship building scenes are there, it's the way in which they're portrayed. These scenes are some of the most cringeworthy in the whole entire movie. The chemistry between Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen is just non-existent. People give Christensen a real hard time for these movies, but especially these scenes. And while no, the guy just doesn't do a great job here, this dialogue he has to say is not helping matters. It's been said a million times, but that whole dialogue about the sand is just awful. It's not just that, though. Pretty much everything that happens between these two on Naboo is just boring and drawn out and just totally unbelievable. And that's one of the things that hurts this movie the most. The relationship building part between these two pillar characters just isn't there. I mean, it happens, but it is totally 100% unbelievable. I mean, from the viewer's perspective, the only reason it is even somewhat believable that they fall in love and get together is because we know that later in the future they have children. That's not really how you want to make your audience believe that these two characters get together. The performances this time around are overall better than they were in Episode 1. They're still not great, but they are better. They're not nearly as stilted as they were last time. It still seems like overall people trying to act like they're in a Star Wars movie. Like they're trying to emulate camp and that original Star Wars feel. But all the fun in doing so has been kind of sucked out. That's what the performances in this movie and the last one really are lacking, is any sense of fun. It doesn't seem like anybody's having a good time doing this. Ewan McGregor seems like he's kind of having a little bit of fun, but beyond him, nobody else in the cast seems like this is something they want to be doing. They do seem a bit more comfortable with the characters this time around, and that's probably why it doesn't seem as stilted, but the fun's just still not quite there. Overall, though, better, so I guess it's a move in the right direction. With the exception of one character. And what do you know? It's the exact same character as last time. Different actor, but the same character nonetheless. Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker is the worst performance in the movie. Now, he's not as bad as Jake Lloyd's Anakin Skywalker, that's for damn sure. But that's not me saying he's good either, because he's not. I'll give Christensen this much. He does handle the action scenes well. In all the action scenes, Anakin does come off as a badass, which he should. There, he's fine. But anytime the script asks him to give any type of dramatic emotion, it just doesn't work. Most of the time, he just comes off as kind of a whiny bitch. And when he's not being a whiny bitch, he comes off as being a creeper stalker towards Padme. I mean, it's really weird. The looks he gives her, and the things he says, and the way he says them is really kind of creepy. Like, to the point that it's distracting creepy. I'd like to say that his performance isn't as bad as everybody made it out to be, but that would be a lie. Anytime he's on screen and he has to actually act, it just doesn't work. It breaks everything up and pulls you right out. And like last time, that's really unfortunate because this is his story. The success of this movie hinges totally on that performance, and he just doesn't pull it off here. Now, while the performances here aren't all that great, especially Christensen, much like the last entry, what really shines is the action set pieces. And thankfully, this time around, there are more of them. The speeder chase in the beginning of the movie is a lot of fun. We get to see a lot more of Coruscant than we had before, and also more of a glimpse into that seedy underbelly of the Star Wars universe that we all love. There's other scenes peppered throughout the movie that keep things exciting and detract from those boring parts, such as the Obi-Wan Jango Fett battle battle about halfway through. But the one that we're all here to see is the last 30 minutes. As the title implies, the beginning of the Clone War. The last 30 or so minutes of this movie is really exciting and executed very well. You get tons of Jedi action battle this time around. And that's what we as Star Wars fans have been waiting for years, and we finally get it here. There's Jedi everywhere, lightsabers all over the place doing just all kinds of badass stuff, and it's awesome. And then we get to see the very beginning of the Clone War and just this huge, awesome battle. We don't totally know why the fuck it's happening and what all's going on, but it looks awesome and it's really exciting. And then there's the final lightsaber battle between Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Count Dooku. Who the fuck came up with that name, man? Count Dooku. Really? You could have come up with something better than that, George. All funny names aside, it's a really cool lightsaber battle that culminates with one of the most awesome while simultaneously funniest moments in Star Wars history. Yoda battling with a lightsaber. It's a pretty cool scene for sure, and Yoda does finally show us why he's such a badass that we've heard about all these years. But when he first walks in with his little cane and pulls out his lightsaber and just all of a sudden goes batshit crazy, flipping all over the room and jumping all over the place, it's kind of distracting. I mean, you get over it pretty quick, but you're not expecting it if you've never seen the movie, that this little old frail alien guy is just gonna start bouncing around like fucking Spider-Man all of a sudden. It does do a pretty good job of illustrating how much of a badass Yoda is, though. The special effects this time around look a lot less dated than they did in the last outing as well. There's not less CG this time around either. I mean, honestly, there's probably more. But I guess ILM just got a lot better at CGI in the 2 or so years between movies, because this time they look a lot better and hold up even today. There are a few things that are off that haven't quite stood that test of time as well, but overall it all looks a lot better than the first time around. Guys, I know episode 2 gets a lot of hate. People talk mad shit about it and give it a real hard time. And it's far from a perfect movie, but I think a lot of those complaints do center on Hayden Christensen's performance and all those Naboo scenes. That shit just all sucks. But overall, the movie does move at a much tighter pace, has a more engaging story, and is just more fun all around. While it's not up to the standard that we've come to expect from a Star Wars movie, it is still an entertaining ride. And much like episode 1, it definitely does retain that Star Wars magic. It still feels like a Star Wars movie. And not just because it says Star Wars. No, it has that whimsical, imaginative feel to it throughout. It does trip up a bit, and it ain't great. But in my opinion, it is an improvement over episode 1, and that's why I would say that this one is absolutely worth a rent. It's not as bad as everybody says. It's not great, but it's not as bad, and it is better than episode 1. Give it a watch one night, and you'll have a good time with it. You can fast forward through all those Naboo scenes, though, because they don't make a fuck. So there it is, guys, my review of Star Wars, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Still not a great title. Better than The Phantom Menace, but still not great. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a thumbs up. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it gets everywhere. Not like here. Here everything is soft and smooth.
You know, I hadn't mentioned it in my episode 1 review or this one, but was anybody really fooled by the whole Senator Palpatine and Emperor Palpatine thing? Furthermore, did George Lucas think he was fooling us? Or did he get that everybody knew what was going on here? I gotta kind of wonder. I think the guy might actually think that he's fooling us with the whole Palpatine thing. Newsflash, George. You didn't. Next up, episode 3!